Welcome to another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. This is the #1 podcast for anyone on this planet, country, or nation who wants to get in the best physical shape for their next vacation. I'll be giving you actionable value to help you with mindset, training, and nutrition to help you transform your life. Disclaimer, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Not because I want to be mean, but because I genuinely respect you. Also, I'm a meathead. So if you tune in and decide to give me the time out of your life that you know you'll never get back, the very least I can do for you is keep it a stack. Expect to be educated, motivated, and inspired. And get ready to laugh over some light-hearted banter. Now that that's out the way, let's chat with IFBB Pro Matt Butale. Get ready, meatheads. Time to dive in. Yo, what's good, meatheads? Hope you're having an amazing day, and welcome to another episode of the Meathead on the Mic podcast. It's the returning champ, IFBB Pro Matt Butale, and today I'm coming at you with another topic. Today, I'll be breaking down the big announcement, the announcement that I've been talking to you guys about for the last 3 days. I know you guys have been patiently waiting, and if you don't really care, then why are you here right now? So anyway, if you have been patiently waiting and you do give a shit, then I appreciate you for showing up. We're going to be diving into this quote-unquote big announcement, and I'm putting these quotes up because it's not really a big announcement if you follow me actively and you know what I do, and sort of how I look in proximity to what I do, and those are some slight hints. Before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that I will be giving this big announcement at the end of this podcast episode. So but before we do that, I want to remind you guys, if you get value from this podcast, if you've ever gotten value from this podcast or anything that I do, whether it's the captions, whether it's the reels, whether it's like, hey, maybe I'm your coach and you like that, and you're listening to this right now, please don't forget to like, share, and comment on this podcast or leave a review to show your support. It really does go a long way. Again, y'all can find me on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Okay, so please don't forget to like, share, and comment. Again, I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. I really do appreciate you. So let's get into it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. And to be honest with you guys, as I said, the big announcement will be announced at the end of today's podcast episode. But we're gonna start at the very start. What are we starting with? Well, we're gonna be talking about my entire journey as a natural IFBB pro, because I don't believe that it's something that I really gave time to speak on within the recent years. And those of you that really know the Meathead on the Mic podcast, you know that for the first couple of years since we've been running, that we were pumping out lots of episodes. We are nearly at episode 300, right? We've been pumping out a lot of episodes, but over the last 2 years, we haven't been. And there is no real excuse to that other than I didn't make time for it. I was just doing other things. And some of these other things you're going to be finding out that you haven't found out in previous episodes in this episode. And also, I want to make a commitment to you guys that on top of me coming back to YouTube full time, I will be coming back to the podcast full time, and that we're going to be doing something super duper special for episode 300. So stick around for that. That's going to be our season 3 here. And yeah, I already love the feeling of this. I love being back. But anyway, let's get into the big announcement. I know I'm grifting a little bit, but I really want to give you this context so that we can dive into this big announcement with real understanding, because I could just blabber and say it right now, then cut the episode, but that wouldn't really do you guys justice, because you guys deserve more than that. You guys deserve more than just me, using the podcast as a platform to just like, hey guys, this is the announcement, and then like leave. Like, no, I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you. Okay. And part of the why is the story. And let me get into the story. So way back when your boy was a wee lad, you know what I'm saying? Let's talk about 2017. So in 2017, at the tender age of 19 years old, I entered my very first natural bodybuilding show. Okay. Some of you guys know this story. Some of you guys don't. It depends on how long you've been subscribed or how long you've been following me on all the social media platforms. Shameless plug. I'm everywhere. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, literally everywhere. You want to find me? You can find me. All right. So if you've been following me, you already know about that. But if you haven't been, let this be the introduction or the refresher. So the show was called the King Kong Classic, and I attended it. Literally my very first show. I was 19 years old. I was dared to do it by a friend. And I was supposed to do the junior bodybuilding class. Junior, if you guys don't know, is it's an age restriction, an age category. So I was 19, which qualified me for a junior because junior is under 21 years old. So my brickhead of a coach at the time was a retired IFBB pro who didn't really know how to register me. Um, he accidentally booked me for the Open. And for those of you that don't know what the Open is, there's two definitions sort of to it. There's like the open bodybuilding, which we use to consider or to differentiate between natural and open, being PED usage. And then there's open that's also used in reference to age category. So where you have juniors, you have novices or experience level, you have novices, so on and so forth. You have the open. Open is, all come get some. The baddest of the baddest are coming in the open, right? Whether it's natural or in the open, which is, it sounds confusing, but you guys will understand it the more I talk about it. Okay, so he accidentally booked me for the Open. I was 19 years old. This is my very first show. I didn't know what I was really doing, and it scared me shitless. Nonetheless, I ended up competing in that show, and I won in the open bodybuilding welterweight class at 19 years old, which qualified me for my very first Natural Nationals, which is now called the Natural Canada Pro Show. It used to be just called the Natural Canada IFBB Pro Qualifier. So it qualified me for my very first Natural Nationals, which was the first IFBB Pro Qualifier for natural athletes in Canada. Guys, I'm going to repeat it. The first natural IFBB Pro Qualifier in Canada. The very first of its kind. And there's none other like it, right? Well, they had another show that they just recently introduced, but it's not the same. Okay, this is the show. This is like the one. All right. So I'm 19 years old. I qualified for this show, and by the following year, I was ready to do the show. Right, it was, I believe, the very first year that they were having that show. It was 2018. So I was 20 years old. I had my qualification from the King Kong Classic. A birthday had passed, and I knew that I wanted to go use this qualification to, essentially aim for nationals. And the whole idea at the time wasn't necessarily to win my pro card, because it was my first year competing. I won't lie, I was a little bit delusional. I did think that it was possible to win my pro card, that quickly, but also at the same time, I knew that there was a lot of muscle for me to grow. And I also knew that, that show specifically was something for me that really meant a lot as an athlete. And here's what I mean by that. So when I say it meant a lot for me as an athlete, I'm specifically referring to my prior days as another kind of athlete. So before bodybuilding, I was a wrestler. I was a freestyle wrestler. I wrestled freestyle between 62 and 67.5 kilos. And I have this scar or this chip on my shoulder because on my birthday in 2015, I lost on an 11-11 tie. If I won that nationals, I would have qualified for Team Canada. I would have been able to represent Canada in the Pan Am Games or had a shot at the Olympics. That was like really where my mind was. That was like what I was as an athlete, before bodybuilding. And so I lost on an 11-11 tie on my birthday. And I'll never forget. That was like genuinely the first time I actually cried after a loss. And it's not like bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is like, it's the opinion of a judge. They say you don't look like the winner, so you're not the winner. But wrestling and pretty much every other objective sport or combat sport at that is so objective to the point where it's like, you didn't win because you got your ass whooped, right? And I didn't really get my ass kicked, but I got 11 points scored on me. I scored 11, but he had more throws. So I lost objectively. They rotate those rules year round. So if it was the year prior, I would have won and been crowned national champion. But that year just wasn't my year. They were weighing throws more than rolls, and I had more rolls than him. But nonetheless, I had this chip on my shoulder because I was supposed to be a national champion national champion wrestler. And I was the only person on the team that we thought was going to do it. And I didn't deliver. So that was something that hurt. So going into this natural nationals, I had this chip on my shoulder, of wanting to be the best in Canada at something. And I came real fucking close. Like, the medal's somewhere on the back there. If you guys are watching this on the replay, or if y'all are watching this live over there on the Instagram or wherever you're watching this, you can see it. It's on my left-hand side, somewhere over there, right? It's that one, actually. It's the blue one right there. It's just blurred out. You can't see it. But anyway, so that title exists, right? So that second place title is something that I wanted to rewrite. I wanted to be the best in Canada at something. And this show was my very first opportunity to be the very best in Canada at something. Okay. So I attend the show. And lo and behold, at age 20, I won that shit too. All right. It was welterweight, open bodybuilding. Again, I realized that, hey, since I won the regional show in the open bodybuilding category, I don't need to restrict my age. I can probably bring the smoke to anybody in Canada and roll my dice and see how I fare. I didn't think I was going to go win, but I knew that I was going to be a top competitor because there's no way a 19-year-old is going to come into a show, beat all these experienced vets, and then not have a chance at nationals. It just didn't make sense. So I knew that I had a chance. So I won that show, which crowned me as the youngest natural national champion at the time. And I'm not sure if anyone else has beat that record yet. I would love to know if it's you, shoot me a DM on any social media platform. I'd love to talk to you. Or if you know anybody, let me know. Again, I would love to hear it, and I just want to support you because that's fucking sick. But anyway, I didn't win my overall title that year. And for those of you that don't know what an overall is like think of boxing. All right, think of boxing. You got weight classes, right? You got lightweight, you got middleweight, you got welterweight, heavyweight, so on and so forth. All those classes, weight classes. So you'll have a champion in every single class. You have your lightweight champion, you'll have your welterweight champion, you'll have your middleweight champion, your heavyweight or your light heavyweight, and your heavyweight champions. That's 5 champions you'll have, right? And out of those 5 champions, all of those champions go on stage again. And the guy who wins that, i.e. the champion of champions, is the true champion, the overall champion. And only that guy at Natural Nationals gets his pro card. So here's where we get a little bit funny because my boy is a great friend of mine and he's my training partner now. We've known each other nearly a decade. Tony Koch, shout out my boy, Tony Koch. He earned his pro card that year, right? He's about 10 years my senior. I remember seeing him backstage and just being like, fuck, like, why did this guy have to show up to this show this year, this time when I decided to do it? He absolutely mopped the floor with everybody. I'm not going to say who I think placed second overall because it's you just lost or you won, right? I already won my class to qualify for overalls. So I was a champion in my own right, but I did lose the opportunity to turn pro. So touche, it is what it is. I ain't going to complain at all about that. Okay, it is what it is. So Tony Koch won that show. And since then, I actually, that's when I actually became closer to him because he was there at my very first show. He was in a different weight class, so we didn't compete against each other. And I remember meeting him backstage, and we had this brief conversation about Dragon Ball Z music and just liking Dragon Ball. And he's just a cool guy. Like I saw a lot of myself in him. Pause. And we meshed really quickly, very 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 soon. Like as soon as we met each other, and then when I got my ass whooped at Natural Nationals, he was there. Him and his coach and his wife, shout out to you, Phoebe, were there, and they took me under their wing, and I'd ask them a bunch of questions, and they taught me so much. And the saying, "If you can't beat them, join them," became literally my motto at that point. So I was like always trying to train with him and do everything, ask his coach questions, so on and so forth. And then it got to a point where, I was just sitting down. I think I was sitting down after the show. I had a couple of drinks, sat down. I think I took a knee. No, it was in the parking lot. My mom was there. I was in the parking lot. I took a knee, had my gin on my side, my bottle. And I was so excited. I was smiling. And my mom's like, "You won your show, yeah, but you didn't win the overall. You didn't turn pro. So why are you smiling?" And this is what I said. I said, "I'm smiling because I know I was close enough to taste it. So I know I had more work to do. And not that there was like a mountain of work, but that it was like close enough. Not that it was like close, but it was close enough. Like I can do the gap. Like I've done wrestling. I know what hard work is. This is just training hard in the gym and eating properly and then looking good on that day. I'm not going to get my ass kicked or thrown or beat up in front of anybody going to this competition. So my mental state, especially as a young guy, was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't really care. Like, this guy, I'm going to lap this guy. Matter of fact, I'm going to do more work, which is why that phrase, or partially why that phrase, more work to do, I like to say it a lot, because that's, I think, when it first clicked to me. More work to do, right? And game on, because it feels like a game to me. So I smiled. I was like rubbing my hands. I was like, you know what I mean? I'm ready. More work to do, game on. And I was 20 years old at the time in the parking lot. I remember that vividly. And my mom was looking at me like a crackhead. But anyway, it speaks for itself, because later on, I went home, and this is the memory I was trying to reference. I sat down, and I had this book, this notebook. It's somewhere here in the office. I'll bring it up later. I brought it up several times in the podcast before, but I've never actually shown it on camera. But I wrote it down. I said, I will become a natural IFBB pro at age 20. Or no, not age 20. I will become a natural IFBB pro in the year 2020. So I'd have been 22 at the time. And I wrote that down because I believed it. I didn't want to say the next year, which was 2019. I said the next year after that, because 2020 just seemed like a cool year, number one. Number two, I did know that there was more work to do, and I wasn't going to just bridge that gap in a year. I wasn't fucking delusional. I know what hard work's all about. It does require time. And so when I wrote that down, I remember just smiling, and then the recurring thought of more work to do game on would just live with me. When I would measure my food, when I'd go to work and bring all my meals, and all those coworkers were questioning me, when I was eating meals in the club washroom, because I was also a bouncer as well, because I was like so serious about locking in and just staying on that trajectory to like earning my pro card and living to what I wrote the fuck down on that piece of paper in that little notebook, which was my work notebook. It was a security notepad. And I think I did make a video about it on my pro debut, which we'll talk about later on. And it's somewhere there. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen it, or YouTube, you might have seen it as a short. And it's the power of manifestation, or something I like to call frustration, which we'll talk about that later. We're bleeding a lot right now. I don't want to be telling you all this right now, because that's not the point of this episode. It's the big announcement. That's what we're leading up to. Okay. So I was close enough to taste it. I knew I had more work to do. And immediately after that show, I promised myself that I turned pro in 2020 at the age of 2022. And so the next year, 2021, I was 20, or 2019, I was 21 years old, right? I was born 1998, April 4th, if you guys don't know. All right, so I grew a boatload of muscle in my very first off season and climbed up a weight class, which wasn't the best thing ever, because part of and again, a lot of young guys make this mistake in natural bodybuilding, or bodybuilding in general, where we think that in order to win, we must put on a bunch of size in the shortest time period as possible. And there is some truth to that, but there also isn't. Because when you're young, yeah, you can put on muscle a lot quicker than anybody else, or at least even yourself when you're older. But it's not necessarily the biggest guy that wins the show. It has to make sense. It has to be big and more conditioned. That's impressive. If you can go on stage and you're just bigger and you lose your conditioning and your lines are washed out, you're not more likely to win just because you have more size. And I kind of knew that in the back of my head, but I also didn't want to believe it, because I viewed the work as being objective improvement by the scale, meaning that if I go on stage heavier, I have a better chance at winning, which rookie mistake, guys. Never make that mistake. Again, but you live and you learn. C'est la vie, right? So I was 21. I grew a fuck ton of muscle and climbed up the weight class. I went from welterweight to middleweight, which is about 10 pounds of stage weight in a year, which is a lot. Even if you take gear, that's a lot in a year. And I definitely sacrificed conditioning to make that happen. I didn't look out of place, but definitely worse in terms of conditioning than the year prior, although bigger, right? So this was a mistake, obviously. I put on too much size too soon and brought just the worst conditioning I brought up until that point. And it was embarrassing, because I knew that looking at the pictures before I went on stage, I am that much bigger, but am I that much better? Was the question. And the fact that I was asking the question, I knew the answer. So I was fucked, right? The result of that was, actually, I didn't even make weight. I had to run in the parking lot to make weight. I was off by like a pound. Anyway, the result of that was I ended up earning a second place finish at that year's Natural Nationals. So imagine this. Very first show, didn't know what I was, gonna do. I win it. Cool. Next show, Natural Nationals. This is the big show. I go there and I kick ass. Didn't get my pro card, but I kicked ass. My first time. Still my rookie season. So I'm on like this cloud. You'll see this is a recurring theme. Foreshadowing, by the way. And then 2019, drunk off my own Kool-Aid, ready to do more work, hungry genuinely, which is a great thing, but not objectively correct, which I fell down to placing. Second place, again, second best in Canada. It was a tough lineup that year, but not what I was used to in any sport. I'm used to working my ass off and just winning. I think I'm just genetically blessed, but I also do have that work ethic. So I'm not going to discount myself there. I was devastated, guys. I was pissed the fuck off. So that was the first time I actually, I think, shed a tear in bodybuilding. I wasn't actually bawling. because wrestling, I was bawling. I threw my medal off and I was like punching lockers and just crashing out. But for this, I just shed a tear, took off my medal, chucked it across the room. My boy, Tony Koch, his coach was there. He had other athletes there, and he just came to comfort me. These times I was self-coached. I was self-coached myself through everything, except for this show that I'm going to be talking about right now and my very first show. And yeah, I was just pissed off, and it was a great thing, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. So the following year was the year of the pandemic, COVID 2020. We already know what that is. So 99% of the shows were canceled, except for one. And this show was the 2020 King Kong Classic, which, you know, I'm not going to say it wasn't organized properly, but again, it was very last minute because all this, like literally 99.9% of the shows were not supposed to happen or didn't happen because of the COVID restriction. So shout out my boy Chris Wong, who's the promoter and the owner of that show. He's just a dog. That guy just works and works and works, and he'll do the best that he can possibly do for all the athletes that show up. It's why that I show up to that. It's why I show up to that show every single year. To bring my clients to compete there, or just to go there just to learn the inner workings and to support them. And again, selfishly, there's a lot for me to learn because, you know, God willing, one day I actually want to promote a show and be on the other side, because bodybuilding for me isn't just like for me. It's like for everybody. It's why I have a podcast even. You know, I love coaching. I love bodybuilding, the ins and outs of the community, natural bodybuilding, open bodybuilding, everything bodybuilding. You know, I've loved it for so long, and I know that I won't be a competitive athlete for the rest of my life. So there's going to have to be a point in time where I do pivot and, you know, immerse myself into the administrative field of bodybuilding, which I've already done and continue to do every single year as I commit. And so he's been one of the greatest vehicles for that commitment over the years, because he's just allowed me to just say, you know, see, this is how we set up the show, or this is how, you know, this goes or that goes, and so on and so forth. And then there's also like judging and all that, which again, God willing, I'll be getting into. But anyway, this show happens. But when he announces it, it's like 3 weeks away from the show. And for those of you guys that don't know, you need more than 3 weeks to prepare for a bodybuilding show. You need at least between, depending on your genetics and how lean you are at the start of your, or at the end of your off season, say 20 weeks to 16 weeks, so 5 to 4 months to get ready for a show. See, now, luckily for me, I don't get too sloppy in the off season, being that I don't put on too much fat and too much water. So I wasn't really in jeopardy, but it was still extreme. I shouldn't have done the show, but I ended up doing it. And this is what I did, guys. I don't recommend this at all. And you can definitely go back to some of the earlier episodes where I talk about this. But the 2020 King Kong Classic let all the athletes know about, say, 3 weeks out, that we only had 3 weeks to prepare. And I said, fuck it. So you know what I did? I wanted to compete in Classic Physique to earn a qualification at the Natural Nationals the following year, which would enable me to compete in both bodybuilding and Classic Physique, because I already had my bodybuilding qualification due to the fact that I, number one, won it before, and number two, I placed top 3 within the prior year. So I didn't have to worry about my bodybuilding qualification. That was, I could always go back and just compete in bodybuilding. But I really wanted to increase the odds of me earning my IFBB Pro card naturally. So I wanted to stack Classic Physique on top of that, right? Which would double my chances, because I'd go on stage for bodybuilding, and then I'd go on stage for Classic Physique shortly after. And then whatever I win, if I win my class in bodybuilding or I win my class in Classic Physique, I have 2 chances at overalls. And if you guys remember the overall sort of scheme that I laid out, that's how it works, right? So I'll have 2 shots at the overall, so 2 shots at the pro card, and that was the intention. It doubled my odds. So what did I do? I don't recommend this, guys, but I dieted my ass the fuck off. And I had a coach at this time. His name was Brett Godin. Shout out to you. He helped me do it in a way where I could retain as much muscle as possible. I still lost a lot of muscle, you know, natural athletes, even guys that are enhanced. Most of you would lose muscle crash dieting, which is essentially what I did. So I dieted my ass off and, you know, made weight in 3 weeks, losing literally like 30 pounds in 3 weeks. So it's like, I'm losing like 10 pounds a week, guys. 10 pounds a week. And then I make weight for the show. Was it smart? No. But I was hungry as fuck, and I didn't care about anything other than my one goal. That one goal that I wrote down in my motherfucking, in that notebook. right? And that notebook was to earn my IFBB Pro card naturally. And not only to earn it naturally, but to earn it in the year 2020. So at that point in time, I didn't know if they were going to have the show yet because I thought to myself, well, King Kong Classic is running. The Natural Nationals technically is going to run, again, I was assuming, in a couple of months from now. So even though like I kind of fucked up with this crash dieting, I have enough time to recomp and to fix everything and to come in with my absolute best by the end of the year, which is when the show usually happens, the Natural Nationals, the Natural Canada Pro Qualifier. But unfortunately, they didn't have the show. But I still won the King Kong Classic. I ended up winning my class, losing overalls. And guys, I've never won in overalls except for the time I actually turned pro, which is what I'll be talking about soon. So I was just hungry as shit, dude. I wanted to earn that pro card naturally and do anything in my power to double the odds of, earning that pro card. So I ended up winning the show, losing the overall. And I didn't really care because I secured the objective. The objective was to get the double qualification at a Natural Nationals, right? And so unfortunately, due to the pandemic, restrictions, that were in place, all that shit, the show was canceled, rendering my goal of earning that pro card in 2020 fucking impossible. So I knew already, I think, was it maybe a month after the show that I did King Kong Classic and earned my Classic Physique qualification, that Natural Nationals was a write-off, which pissed me off because I wrote it down. I'm like, no, it's supposed to happen. In my book, it's supposed to happen. Like, I'm supposed to be pro this year. What the fuck, guys? Then I'm just mad at the government. Anyway, the very next year, in 2021, they announced that the show was up and running and would be making a full return. I think that was the year when they started lifting the bans and the restrictions for social distancing and all that gay shit that they were doing all that year. And I worked, like, when I learned of that, I saw the post on Instagram, like my pupils fucking dilated. I'm like, oh yeah? So 2020 passed. I went back to my notebook, scratched off 2020 and wrote 2021 instead. I literally wired, guys. I was literally wired. And I worked like an absolute rabid dog, like a fucking fiend. Like, it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal. I barely slept. I was sleeping maybe 5 hours maximum. Like, that was luxury to me. 4 hours on average. 3 hours was just a dirt nap. I was working 2 jobs, training like an animal, cooking all my own meals, coaching myself, just grinding. And on top of the 2 jobs, I was like kind of side hustling with my personal training. I was like doing in-person training. Didn't really have an idea as to like what I would do business wise. I just knew that people kept asking me fucking training questions, and I'm like, just pay me for it, and pay me to be at the gym with you, and like whatever. Like, I was already a nationally ranked and a prior national champion, which again, that felt really good because of the wrestling story that I told you guys. I really wanted to be the best in Canada at something, which happened. And so I absolutely marketed the fuck out of that selfishly. But didn't really know what I was doing. I'll be fair. Right. So I was working like a dog, guys. 6-7 days training in the gym. 7 hours of cardio a week. Extremely strict nutrition protocol. Like, I was not fucking playing. Like, the moment I saw that, I screenshotted the advertisement for the show or the promotion for the show, saying that they were back and up and running, and I just knew that it's just fucking happening. Like, I'm winning. I'm winning. I'm winning. I'm winning. And when I'm walking on the treadmill, I'm thinking to my head, I'm the champion. I'm the champion. I'm winning. I'm like on some cuckoo shit. I was actually nuts, which is required if you really want to be the best of the best at some shit. Okay, so. Guys, I'm like, it was crazy. I was micromanaging my nutrients like a motherfucking crackhead. I would scale out my salt, guys. You guys don't know about work, man. You guys don't, and I'm not insulting you, but I'm saying that there's a gap between what you think you want and what you actually want. And that gap is literally your fucking insanity. Like, how fucking crazy are you willing to get for this thing? Because if you get obsessed with it, there's like kind of no way you're going to miss. And that was like partially my philosophy behind it. And it wasn't an idea, more so than it was like the practice, because I knew that when I thought that way in wrestling and I just trained harder than everybody else, I kicked everyone's ass when it came to the meet. Just what it was. So, I just, everything you could possibly do to double the odds, I did 10x that. And my philosophy was also, quote, I will do what you won't to earn what you can't. That entire prep. I just kept thinking of like, okay, everybody backstage. When I'm backstage, and I'm closing my eyes now because this is literally how it was, right? When I'm backstage, or whenever you're about to go do a competition or something, you feel nerves. You're naturally you feel just nervous. Like it's a part of the game. And what quelled my nerves or what calmed my nerves was knowing that I did so much fucking work that I don't have the right to be nervous. I overly studied. I aced the fucking homework. Like, what is there to be worried about? Genuinely, I turned every stone 8 times and then 2 more times after that. I just doubled down and 10x'd it. Like, I know that for a fact, there's just no way that my competitors would even have the fucking time in the day to do what I was doing. Like, it's just not true. Like, they couldn't have done it. And if they did, they would have looked like me backstage, which they didn't. They did not. Right. And I knew that. And it wasn't like it gave me like this egotistical boost or anything. It was just genuinely like, you have to earn the right to not be nervous. And the way to do that is to do more than everybody else will ever do and then 10x that shit. And then don't tell anybody. I guess I'm telling you guys now, but again, this is all in a retrospect because who knows? Maybe it's a 100x or a 1000x now. Who actually knows? I'm not telling you guys. Fuck that. No, but jokes aside, the mindset was I will do what you won't to earn what you can. That entire prep. And by the time the show rolled around, I was 23 years old and I'd registered for both bodybuilding and classic physique. And I went out there and brought my very best. Like at that point in time, everybody that was around me was like, yeah, this guy's taking steroids. Like, he's not natural. Like, it was actually disgusting. Like, I overdid everything. Everything, guys. Like, everything. And I was self-coached too. I knew what I was doing. And I learned from my mistakes, which is more important. And I absorbed knowledge from the great coaches before me that I had. The whole point of having a coach is to learn from them, not just for them to give you orders. And I knew that at a very young age. And at that time, after COVID, I went all in on my online coaching business after hiring a mentor because during COVID, I got laid off from the auction lot job that I was working at and the clubs were closed. So I couldn't bounce on the street anymore in downtown Toronto. So I was kind of forced into the position, which became a blessing in disguise because it allowed me so much more free time to focus on my craft, which is natural bodybuilding, which enabled me to have so much time to like invest in myself nutritionally, with my micronutrients, with my recovery, with my training sessions, my cardio, to the point where like I knew if you have a full-time job, you're not beating me. You're just not beating me because you can't do it. Like, you have to sleep. And then on top of that, I get more sleep than you too. And I get to do everything. Like, I'm a full-time fucking bodybuilder as an amateur. I wasn't even pro yet and I was living like a pro. And that's a part of this, a huge part of this, guys. You got to build a pro physique before you earn that pro card. But before you build that pro physique, you got to live that pro lifestyle because that's the precursor. And that's exactly what I was doing. And thank goodness for all my wonderful clients and my wonderful mentors for allowing me to actually truly experience that. Because outside of the time liberty, I had extreme, and I continue to have extreme financial liberty, building my skills, and you guys can hear it over the years, like sales skills. And the reason why I have this podcast is I'm not just selfishly being honest with you guys. It makes me money. Like, I don't monetize this podcast for that specific reason because I know it's going to help you. And if you listen to this podcast, there are going to be things that you can take away from it that's going to benefit your life. And if it benefits you enough, you might just actually want to work with me. That's a part of why I do it. It's not all the reason why. But again, transparency is my thing here. I'll always keep it a stack with you guys, as you heard and continue to hear in the intro of my podcast and the outro of my podcast. See right through me. I don't give a fuck. I'm not hiding anything, right? This is the world. And I'm glad that you're a part of mine and I'm a part of yours. So getting back to it, guys, I brought my very best. And by the end of the night of that show in 2021, November 27th, 2023, I'll never forget that day. At the end of the night, not only did I win my class, but I became the youngest natural IFBB pro bodybuilder in Canada. I'm going to repeat that. I became the youngest natural IFBB pro bodybuilder in Canada at that time. I don't think that, again, if there's anybody that's beat that, please, you're more than welcome. I love you and I support you and we're part of the same tree. You know what I mean? So let me know who you are. Or if you know anybody else that's done it, let me know. And again, I'm speaking for men specifically, but I don't think women as well have topped that. I was 23 years old at the time, which was, to me, I didn't know at the time. I didn't know I was the youngest guy to do it. But just the fact that I did it, and it was just 1 year shy of what I wrote down on that piece of paper. And the only reason why, this is what I justified to myself, that I didn't get in 2020 was because the show didn't happen. And so I knew the power of my mind at that point in time. I'm like, bro, if I can just sit down, write my goal down, and then walk it the fuck down in slow motion, bleeding, crying, sweating, whatever the fuck was going on, I just did it, and that I could do it. Oh man, that was like the best, worst thing to ever happen to me. Best because, yeah, I see my power, but worst because I see my power. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew I could dream big, and anything that I dream about is just gonna fucking happen. It just is, because I'm obsessive. I'm wired like that. You know what I mean? And I wasn't. I think I was born that way. So it's not something that I think I developed. I think it's something that you're born with or you're not. It's like it's not hard work. Is not working hard. Isn't as much of a skill as you guys think it might be. Like, you can grind for a little bit and then be satisfied. Then there's like working hard, where like you do it for free. Guys, as an amateur, I was paying to go to these shows. Like, it's not cheap. You got to pay for your food. You got to pay for your registration. You got to pay for your tanning. You got to pay for your hotel, your travel, all this, right? And I'm subjecting myself. At the time when I started, I was fucking broke when I started, guys. Like, paying my coach, what was it? I think I was paying him $500 a month. I was 19 years old. My gym membership. I was taking the bus. Like, I just had enough money for groceries and rent. And it fucked me, but I still did it because that's just what I wanted to do. And like, you got to be kind of crazy to do that shit for a long period of time, not knowing the outcome and still just working with your head down. And it's like that level of hard work you can't train. Like, that dog mentality, you cannot make someone do that. You can't force someone to do that. So imagine forcing yourself. It was crazy. But I think it's a huge reason as to why, like, I'm here doing what I'm doing with the wonderful clients that I have, with all the freaking accolades that I have, which honestly, I don't really do it for that, because I told you guys, I did this shit for fucking free. Like, because I was just crazy about it. I love the way that my physique would grow every single year, looking at the pictures year by year, knowing that I'm becoming a bigger man, not just with my physique, but mentally. Like, everything that I say I do happens. And then on top of that, the goals that I write down, it's like a premonition. It's not really a goal. It's just something that hasn't happened yet, is what it feels like. And that power of knowing intrinsically that with God and with my effort and with consistency, I'm able to like develop something so, like, literally write down my dream life and watch it play out in slow motion as I work my face off, of course. It's a real luxury. It's the reason why I love bodybuilding so much, because the physical is just a representation of what goes on upstairs here in your mind, right? And in my mind, there were so many things going down that didn't even make it on that piece of paper, but every fucking thing that made it on that piece of paper is the reason why I'm here, right? And if you're listening to this, you have ideas and you have goals and dreams of yours that you haven't been living up to, and you haven't put it on a piece of paper yet, I strongly urge you to do it. And I don't mean sit here and write it down and then hope it happens, because that will never fucking happen. Write it down because it happened already. You're just writing from the past. That's your frame. You need to think of it that way. Anyway, I brought my very best. Won my IFBB Pro card, was the youngest natural IFBB Pro in Canada to do that. And it was crazy because just 1 year shy of that 2020 goal, which I couldn't get because COVID happened, right? So my dreams came true. I watched them happen. I worked for it. And fast forward a few years later, I was at 26 years old. And at age 26, nearly after a 3-year hiatus from competing, which, if you guys don't really know what happened, I'm not going to dive too deep into that in this episode because that's not really important. But if you want the meat and potatoes on that, you can go to, I think it's episode 288 on the Meathead on the Mic podcast. So Apple Podcast or Spotify, just scroll down 288. That's like the whole drop. I talk about what happened in that 3-year gap year from competing. So you can go check that episode out. And so fast forward, in November 2024, I traveled to compete in my very first international show. My very first show was an IFBB Pro. And for those of you that don't know what IFBB stands for, it stands for International Federation of Bodybuilding, right? It's the same federation that Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you guys know him, he competed in and got a 7-time Mr. Olympia championship. If you guys know Ronnie Coleman, or you young TikTok guys that know Kevin Levrone, Dorian Yates, all the big names of bodybuilding, the heart of what bodybuilding is on this planet is the IFBB. So everybody wants that. There are several federations, several cards and all that, but IFBB is the reason why you give a shit. That's bodybuilding. Okay. Anyway, so I used my IFBB Pro card to travel for the first time to compete in my very first international show as a natural IFBB Pro. And that was the Ben Weider Naturals of the year 2024. And I did my debut show in bodybuilding. I didn't do classic physique because I wanted to sort of like, wave off bodybuilding, because bodybuilding is how I got my pro card. I turned pro as a bodybuilder, not as a classic physique athlete or bodybuilder. So I said, it's only fitting that my very first amateur show and the show that gave me my pro card and my very first pro show are all bodybuilding. So I did that, and lo and behold, I won my IFBB Pro debut in bodybuilding in November of 2024. I believe it was November 16, 2024. And that win solidified my conviction that I was born for natural bodybuilding. Like, it just felt like being an amateur all over again, because when you turn pro, you become a small fish in a big pond, right? So I became a small fish again, the same way that I was a small fish when I did my very first show in 2017 as a 19-year-old, and the same feeling happened. It's like, hey, I don't know what's gonna happen. This is the big leagues, or this is something I haven't done before, and I'm gonna go here, just put it all on the floor. And I did that, and I won the same way that I did at my very first show. So it was like a full circle moment, if that made sense. Especially this being after a 3-year hiatus, in which those 3 years were not the best 3 years for me, right? So it really meant a lot. And it solidified my conviction that I was born for natural bodybuilding. And shortly after that, so nearly a year later, in August of 2025, the very same show that I turned pro at, which was previously known as the Natural Canada Pro Qualifier, which was only a natural IFBB Pro Qualifier, it was not a pro show, they sanctioned their very first natural IFBB Pro show, meaning that any natural IFBB Pro that has a pro card can go there and compete as a pro. So not only is it a pro qualifier, so the day before would be like the pro qualifiers, the day after is the pro show. So once I caught news of that, it was like the second coming of what I was talking about earlier on, of when I was 21 in 2019, and I saw the flyer, or not 2019, it was 2023, and I saw the flyer of them opening up nationals again after COVID, and I screenshotted it, and I got that dog mentality, and I started working, crazy again. It's like the second coming of that, right after winning my pro debut. So it's just like, again, it felt mental. It felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. This is where I'm supposed to be. So shortly after that, I dove at the opportunity to compete at the very first, which was the 2025 Natural Canada Pro Qualifier. And lo and behold, I become 2-0, guys, 2-0, undefeated. I won my classic physique debut. So I didn't do bodybuilding because, and I glossed over this, but I talked about this in other podcast episodes. In bodybuilding at the Ben Weiders, because Ben Weiders is the pinnacle. You have to qualify for that show as a natural IFBB Pro. So once you qualify for the Ben Weiders, you have to win that. And if you win that, you are qualified for the Olympia, which is the Open Olympia, you guys. Yeah, there's no natural Olympia. This is the same Olympia that Arnold Schwarzenegger won 7 times. Ronnie Coleman won 8 times. Flex Wheeler and Kevin Levrone were uncrowned from. Phil Heath won this shit 7 times. This is the Open Olympia, right? Chris Bumstead, right? So that's the end goal. And once you do that, you rinse and repeat it, and you remain the best natural IFBB pro bodybuilder that you can be. And so that year, I learned that all athletes in all divisions will be going to the Olympia except for anybody that wins the bodybuilding division, which is what I want. And the reason why, which again, I'm not against it, I totally understand it, is because in the open bodybuilding category at the Olympia, those guys are like 300 pounds lean. A natural IFBB pro bodybuilder, you'd be lucky if they're lean and big around like 220, 210 even. You know what I mean? Like that's like rare 0.0001% genetics. And it's not just about the weight, but it's just the size, the sheer size. And it would be embarrassing to have a natural IFBB pro go out there on the stage with 300 pounders, because you'll be fighting for last. You wouldn't even be fighting for last. You are just getting last. You are just doing that. It's like having a free VIP package to go backstage and go on stage. That's really what that would be. And so they, of course, didn't let that happen. However, for every division outside of bodybuilding, classic physique, men's physique, women's bodybuilding, all those wellness, they're allowed to go, right? So I knew that, and when I went to go dive into the opportunity at the Natural Canada Pro Show in 2025 of August, I knew that I had to do classic physique to earn my classic physique qualification to go to Ben Weider's and actually have a shot at earning that ticket to go to Vegas and go to the Olympia, right? And so my biggest challenge yet, absolutely. I went there. Again, I won my show in August in my home country, in my home city, and I qualified for Ben Weider's again. So I flew out to West Virginia again, and guys, like by then I was walking in there like on fire, 2-0 with a pro debut and win in bodybuilding and a pro winning classic, as a pro, like I was elated. But I realized there was one goal left, which is the Olympia, and I didn't want to go to win it. Even now, I don't want to go to win it. I just want to go and say that as a natural IFBB pro, I worked so hard and I achieved so much that I got to a point where, there's something that I've achieved where most people can never claim it. They'll never be able to say that they went to the Olympia naturally. And it's not about most people. It's mainly about myself because, as I said, guys, I've done this. I've done this for free for years before I turned pro. And so this is just one of those goals on my wall that I have on my vision board that made me kind of hungry for this vision, right? So just to go to the Olympia, but to do it as a natural. So I didn't have to forfeit my internal moral clock or moral guidance. And not to say that I'm morally superior to those that take gear. No, I love, like, all my boys that are pros are pretty much on, and I train with them. I actually prefer to train with them because the natural guys usually don't have that fire. But I like to train with people that are ahead of me and that are bigger and stronger than me. And typically those guys are enhanced because most natural people aren't where I'm at. Anyway, I shot for classic physique at the 2025 Ben Weider's, and I lost terribly. I got 7th place, and I'm not really going to dive into like the what behind that. I think I talked about it in the caption of that post on that day. There are several things going on. Not worth talking about because when you lose, you lose. Like, fuck it. So I lost. Bad. It was the second last placing. So there's 8 people there. I got 7th, right? Which I've never even placed 7th in any sport that I've ever done in my fucking life. So that there was devastating. I was frustrated as fuck. I impulsively went. So I remember this. I was in the hotel. My boy Tony was just sleeping on the other bed there. I didn't even sleep. I had my laptop open and I was just doing some client work and then editing after that. And then it's like this deja vu again. I get this notification of the show that was happening. It was like the last show of the year. And normally it's Ben Weider's. Ben Weider's is the last show of the year, and then there's the Olympia. But this show was just 2 or 3 weeks after that. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I didn't bring my best to Ben Weider's, and I know why I didn't. And I'm not going to dive into that because we can talk about that later on. And you know what? We will talk about that later on. We're never going to be ending this podcast anyway. So there's going to be more stuff to talk about. And I'll tell you guys about the importance of, your mental state, relationships, and, prep. Because I think that would be that's the sentiment around the reason, not the reason, but mostly the reason why I bombed that show. I thought I could do more than I was capable of doing mentally, and it was tied into relationships, which is not smart. But we'll talk about that later on. Anyway, I was angry at myself, and I impulsively, went on to book a show, the last show of the year, to redeem myself and to prove to myself that, okay, I've got this shit off my shoulder. It's time for me to lock in and focus on the goal at hand and earn my qualification for next year's Ben Weider's so that I can just chill out the entire year, build and grow, and then I don't have to compete. I can just come up to Ben Weider's. Which, I didn't realize that I didn't even need to do that because I'd already earned a lifetime qualification when I won at my pro debut. But hey, I didn't really care. I just knew that I knew that I was not going to finish that season on the bottom the way that I finished previously. That was shit. I hated the way that felt. All right. So, I booked the show. It was called the Southern Natural Showdown. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. And, that's where I went, and I fought my ass off and earned a 2nd place finish to the runner-up at the 2025 Ben Weider's show, right? So I actually beat the competitor who placed fifth at that same show just literally 2 or 3 weeks prior that I placed seventh at. So that was a portion of like, okay, this was part of the difference of trying to do a show with all this extra bullshit in your head and stress on your back and trying to do too much. And then also being, the other side, which is like your focus, you're not really paying attention or too much attention to the distractions in your life. And you're just focused on the goal at hand. No, I didn't win the show. So, it wasn't a win, but I was vindicated, or it vindicated my efforts, and became the proof that, it became proof of the statement that I always say to myself, which is win, lose, or draw, I always come out on top. Like win, lose, or draw. Because that was a loss. Second place is not, you didn't win, right? But I did come out on top because the reason why I did that show was to prove to myself that 3 weeks ago meant fuck all. That was not me. And it was so true to the point that the guys that beat me got beat in 3 weeks, which if you don't know bodybuilding, guys, you can't really make that much of an improvement to do that kind of thing unless you royally fucked up your previous showing. Like I didn't gain 100 pounds of muscle in between the shows, but I did dial in and get more conditioned, which I wasn't at the Ben Weider's, and I believe, which is why I was penalized. I know it was why I was penalized. I talked to the judges, right? And so I brought my conditioning above the standard that I normally bring it to, which is enough to have me doing boxing with the guy who almost went to Vegas and won the big show. So again, the goal is you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it. So that was really the sentiment behind that show there, right? And that placing earned my qualification for this year, which is 2026. This year's Ben Weider's, where I'll be going again to roll my dice against the world's best natural IFBB pros all over again. And again, guys, I'm already qualified now as we speak because of that second place finish. But I do believe I was qualified. I'm qualified for life because I've already won Ben Weider's once, although it was in a different class. I'm pretty sure like a lifetime qualification means lifetime qualification. And if not, then cool. I don't care because I'm still going to compete anyway. And speaking of that, the question becomes, what's the big announcement? Why am I sharing all of this? Why have I been yapping on a podcast episode for nearly a fucking hour? What's the underlying message? Okay, well, guys, if you've been following me for any amount of time, like at least the last 2 years, last 1 year even, definitely the last year, you know that I don't announce the shows that I'll be competing at until around like 8 weeks out. It's just, I don't like doing it. I like just doing the show. I don't even like talking about it, really. I really fucking hate talking about it. But it's a part of the game. You got to promote the show. So, oh man, this is very funny. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the show that made me a natural IFBB pro, the Natural Canada Pro Show, it's the show that I earned my second pro card win at, is less than 6 weeks away. So what does that mean? What does that mean? You guessed it, guys. You guessed it. I'll be defending my title at this year's 2026 Natural Canada Pro Qualifier / Natural Canada Pro Show in Classic Physique. So right now we're actually less than 6 weeks. We're approaching 5 weeks, I believe, or finishing up 5 weeks at the point in time of this recording / live stream. But still stands true. I'll be defending my title at the 2026 Natural Canada Pro Show in Classic Physique. That's the big announcement, guys. This is my very first title defense in my home country, in my home city, and I'd love for you guys to be a part of this journey. And if you can't, for whatever reason, attend this show in person, there will be a live stream. So you can watch it wherever you are in the world. And again, guys, I'm just going to remind you, I know you see, well, the Instagram live can't really see it. It's like blurred out. But you see a fuck ton of medals behind me. Lots of golds. Few second places. Almost no thirds. I think I only had like 1 or 2 third places from like wrestling. Like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Lots of gold. The big fat pro card over my head. But that's not the reason why we do this shit, guys. As I told you before, and I'll say it again, we did this shit for free. I get paid to do it now. I'm a competitor. Matter of fact, I don't even do it for the money. I make money on my coaching. I just love bodybuilding. I will not stop until I'm forced to, like by God. It's hit or hit, guys. If not by fate, then by force. And that's another thing I like to say. And I'm going to get into all these sayings that I say in the future podcast episodes so that you understand the lingo a little bit better and you can get into my mind a little bit and sort of download this hunger. Because I do believe a lot of you men need this hunger. Y'all are up to nothing most of the time. You got to stop eating like shit, jerking off, and like thinking about dreams of wanting to be a millionaire and not fucking doing anything about it. Like, I'm the guy that, sit there and thinks about it, but also does the work. So I know what it feels like to, wow, I had that great idea and I wrote it down and I feel good about thinking about it. But I also know what it's like to actually do it. And I'm telling you, on the other side of the fence, it's always worth doing it. Matter of fact, don't even write it down if you don't think you're going to do it. You must write it down because it's happened already and you're coming back from the past to write it down to make sure that it does. That's the fucking only way you're ever going to do anything. Like, ever. No one's going to make you. Who gives a fuck about you enough to make you lose weight? Exactly. Who gives a fuck about you enough to make you make the money? Like, to live the dream that you want to live? Nobody cares, guys. Nobody gives a fuck except for you. And like partially me, because I've been here for almost an hour telling you to give a fuck and sharing my journey with you so you give a fuck. So I kind of care, but that's a good thing. Guys, we're here to create history, to add more chapters to the book that 19-year-old in 2017 was crazy enough to dream about, that fucking crackhead. Hey? If you want to be inspired, if you want to witness one of the most competitive lineups in the natural IFBB history. Because, guys, I'm not just the only big name that's coming to the show. There are some fucking hitters who are doing their very first pro show. Shoot, one of them is even related to one of the world's greatest coaches, prep coaches of all time, has coached any of the greatest bodybuilders that you can think of. Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, any of those, Flex Wheeler, Chris Aceto, his son. He earned his pro card last year at the Natural Canada Pro Qualifier. And he was the youngest ever to do it at 20 years old. No, he's not Canadian, so I hold the Canadian record, but hey, he's the youngest to ever do it. We have Toyton coming from UK. Fucking phenomenal physique. Coming in from WNBF, I believe. And, now he's in the IFBB stream. He earned his pro card last year. Amazing physique. Monster. Genetic phenom. He's coming. We have Amir, who earned his pro card at the Ben Weider qualifier, because it's a pro show and a pro qualifier similar to this show here, the Natural Canada Pro Show. He earned his IFBB pro card naturally last year, and he's coming, and he looks great. Genetic phenoms. I do believe he's of Congolese descent, just like I am. Insane. And those are just the guys that I know. There are other guys that I'm just, who knows, man? I don't know. Right? But what I can say is that you guys will see one of, if not the best, natural IFBB pro shows that you've seen since last year's Ben Weiders. Bar none. No contest. This is going to be fucking intense. This is going to be one of those ones that you can't miss. This is history. Natural bodybuilding in the IFBB is quite young. They only started giving out pro cards in Canada to natural bodybuilding, or to natural bodybuilders in 2018. We're not even a decade in. They've just added the bulk of the natural IFBB pro shows within the last 2 or 3 years. So you guys have the luxury of witnessing the growth of something that over years and years and decades will be the new talk. And I'm not saying new talk is in overriding, what bodybuilding is, which the open enhanced guys that, the Chris Bumstead that we all love, and I still love them. But you will truly be able to get to see and witness the true level of what is attainable naturally. And I think that that's something that we've never seen before to the scale that the IFBB is providing. Okay, so you don't want to miss this one, guys. Mark your calendar, August 2nd, 2026. That's the big announcement. And until then, more work to do. Game on. All right, guys, that's it. That's all. If you like this episode, share it out with a friend. Do not forget to like, share, and comment on this podcast. Again, leave a review, show your support. It really, really does go a long way. Again, I wouldn't be able to do this without you. If you weren't listening, I do not know who would be. All right. I hope I was able to deliver a valuable experience to you guys today. Thank you so much for your precious time and attention. Also, selfish plug, if you do want to join the Natural Nomad Academy and have me, Natural IFBB Pro, 2-time IFBB Pro champion, as your head coach, you know where to find me. You can just hit the link in my bio or just shoot me a DM and I'll see if you'd be a good fit. Again, guys, feel free to DM me if you want to just talk about anything regarding bodybuilding, or if you want to talk about coaching, if you want to talk about anything along the lines of what we love here on the Meathead on the Mic podcast. Outside of that, guys, it's been nice chatting. Hope you like what today's topic was about. Natural IFBB Pro, Matt Butale, signing out. Peace. Thank you so much for your precious time and attention. This is the #1 podcast for anyone on this planet, country, or nation who wants to get in the best physical shape for their next vacation. Don't forget to implement at least one thing from this podcast. Remember, information without implementation is just fucking noise. I provide actionable value for a reason. Take full advantage of it. If you laughed, cried, got any value, motivation, or inspiration from this podcast, share it out to one friend who you know will enjoy it too. Shameless plug, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matt Butale, if you want to know this meathead on a more personal level. Heads up, it's not safe for work and it can get explicit. Viewers' discretion is advised, but I promise you will still laugh, learn, and get value. Also, if you want to lose 25 pounds and become a part of the Natural Nomad Academy and join the Meathead community, feel free to DM me and I'll see if you'll be a good fit. Let's embrace your inner meathead. All right? It's been nice chatting. Hope you like what today's topic was about. Natural Nomad Academy head coach and Natural IFBB Pro Matt Butale, signing out.